Communication School.
Yeah.
Go over there, Hartford.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're live.
Welcome to On the Square. I'm your host, Mike Hell Coffee. With today's topic, we're going to talk about the city of Hartford, and I don't know what section, or we're going to talk about the whole city or a certain part of the city. I want to give a shout out to the Moore Science Temple, the Rastafarian culture, the Prince Hall Masons, the Nation of Islam, and the Nuwabians. Now, I'm going to let my host, as the host, I'm going to let my guest introduce himself first. You probably don't know him, so.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night, whenever you're watching the show.
If that's true.
My name is Douglas McCory. For all you who do know me from a long time ago, if you just getting to know me, you might know me as Representative McCory, but that title has changed, and now I'm Senator Douglas McCory,
Okay.
and I represent North Inner Hartford, Bloomfield, and Windsor.
Okay. Google Doug McCory getting dunked on in college.
And nothing will come up. Oh, man.
Okay, now I'm going to admit that I made an error. I left my notes on Harvard at home, but off of memory, I tried to recreate my notes. So I got 18.6 square miles for the city of Hartford, and you got different numbers for that. 120,000 people, you have different numbers for that too. The Hartford County, so it's different from the metropolitan area, is 39 towns. So you're talking about going all the way from Granby, all the way to Glastonbury, all those 39 towns around that area, Weathersfield, East Hartford, Windsor, all those towns are part of Hartford County, which makes 1 million people roughly. You know, you're going to have different numbers, 1.2, whatever, 1.1, but you're going to have different numbers. My issue, and I don't know if Doug is going to address it or address what he's planning to do as a senator for the city or this area, the district that he covers, is increasing the tax base for the area. So I'm talking about the city of Hartford, because everybody's benefiting from the city of Hartford. And why would I make that statement? Because 80%, and there's different numbers. Some people say it's 90, I say it's 80% of the downtown workers are coming from the suburbs. The Public Works, Hartford Public Works, said in 2015, I guess you can Google Hartford Current. They said they spent $1 million picking up bulk waste around the city, and a lot of it is not coming from Hartford residents. They changed the policy, which a lot of people don't know the policy change, where you can call the city to say, I want something to remove, like a sofa or a refrigerator, whatever. They want to charge $75, and trying to discourage out-of-towners from just dumping. I don't know if that's a good policy. Doug can talk about it if he chooses to. He has that ability to, plead the fifth, decide which ones he wants to talk about. Another thing that's going on, less than 25% of the population of Hartford owns property, like a building, like a multi-family or apartment building type situation. So you have out-of-towners and out-of-staters that own a lot of the assessed buildings in the city of Hartford. So that's an issue. Another thing, we previously talked about how many mortgages in the past was underwater in Hartford, and Hartford was a leading contender in other cities around the country. Hartford's the fourth poorest city of its size. I didn't say totally, but I guess you would term Hartford a mid-sized city. So it's not a great metropolis, metro area like a New York City. So that would be large category. But under mid-sized city, They're the fourth poorest city in the country. The city mill rate is extremely high, and at home I had the actual mill rate figure, and I'm not going to guess it now because I don't have it in front of me. Hartford also have a huge amount of, I know it's a state capital, all state capitals dealing with the same problem with assessing tax exempt property. So Hartford has 3 hospitals. So we're saying Hartford, St. Francis, and the Children's Hospital. They have 147 churches in Hartford. Now, I'm not counting temples and I'm not counting mosques. Just straight Catholic, well, it's not Catholic, but Christian churches. All these nonprofit agencies also. So now you have, I think it's 50% of the property in Hartford is taxable. So how do you grow the base when you have a huge population of buildings are tax exempt? Also, you got a huge percentage of poor people, because I think the median income of Hartford residents is $18,000, and this is off of the top of my head. So be impressed, you know. And so you have elderly population, young people, and let's call them the working poor that make up the bulk, you know, of the residents here. We don't have Donald Trump and people like that living here, so to pay the taxes. And the last thing to move on, so let Doug get into this and correct me if he need to correct me. The last thing is the residency rule that I'm a big proponent of. Is what, 60 city officials, and the mayor, I'm quoting the mayor stating that it's hard to recruit good workers. I don't know what he mean by good workers that come in here because they don't want to live in Hartford. My whole thing is, you don't have to spend the rest of your life living, or until your pension come due to live in Hartford. You could have a resident rule for 5 years or 3 years, but you got to know the city. If you're a firefighter, a police officer, people, you're making decisions for a city that you don't know, you're commuting to. And even Doug can talk about, is it feasible to have a toll coming in? I can't remember, Doug, the city that have that. There's a city right now that when you come in, you pay toll. But if you go around it, you don't got to pay. It's just a toll.
And not in Connecticut.
No, it's not in Connecticut. It's in the United States. And again, like I left my notes, but there's a city that is going to have that activate. So when you come to that particular city, you got to pay a fee. It's like $1 to come in. And the last thing, look around us. The second most populated city is Worcester. Have you ever heard of Worcester, Mass? The Boston is the #1 populated city, but Worcester, Mass is the second one. The third one is Providence. Providence is going to overshoot Worcester in a little while. Why these cities populations are growing and Hartford is losing population, or what they call a brain drain? You know, and as you can look at some of these reports. You got some reports where saying that Hartford is appealing for young black tech workers. It's the #1 place, which I don't agree. I think the Brookings Institute out of I think they're out of California put out that report. So how do Hartford recruit more people to live and work here? How do we get the tax base up, you know, to pay for some of the stuff that, like moving this trash that's all over the city? How do we pay that, or even avoid bankruptcy type of situations? And I don't want to leave out the North End, because the North End is in a situation where they need some relief. You know, so if Doug have any ideas or anything coming down the road for the North End, or just the city of Hartford in general, and then you can touch on Bloomfield or Windsor if you choose, if we have enough time.
Man.
That's a lot.
You talked about a whole lot of issues. Many of them I've heard for a number of years.
Right.
So, you know, as a So where I sit as a legislator, I always try to make this clear to people because, to be honest with you, 90% of the questions, maybe 92% of the questions I get from people who call me about to talk about issue or problem they have, they're mostly locally related, like something that your city council or your mayor or something like that have to answer. Because I have no authority over that.
Okay.
But the other 10% I can address. So like, for example, let's talk about the bulk waste issue. That's a local issue. I mean, I can't set a policy to say that bulk waste, because when I set policy, it's for everybody in the state.
For
of
everybody,
not
right.
just people that live in Hartford. But it's interesting because, so they had a policy, and I loved it. I lived in Hartford. I live in North Hartford, so I loved it. If I had something large, I just put it out to the street.
Right.
The city used to come by, pick it up, and throw it away. Never a problem. And apparently, about a week or so ago, they changed the policy, and they were charging $75.
Right.
And then people got really upset about that.
And it was higher than other.
Yeah, it was like higher. Yeah,
Manchester is
It was like
$50.
Right.
New Haven is $50.
So they went from zero to
Yeah.
100 real quick. But I understand the dilemma, because what you see happening is a lot people are coming into Hartford, dumping these large items right on city streets, and expecting the city to pick them up.
Right.
And it's been happening for years. So I guess what the city was saying, like, we can't continue to go down this route. We need to start charging. But unfortunately, you're charging the people who actually are paying the taxes, who live in Hartford, who
There
are
you
some
go.
of the poorest people in the United States of
States
America.
right.
You can't just charge them $75 for something that they're not guilty of, And I know it used to be that you had a city dump. And if you're a city resident, you had 3 dumps. You get 3 dumps a year for free. So if you have something big and bulky like that, you had to bring it over to the city dump.
Right.
And do it that way, which I think is a good thing. I think that's
Right.
If they continue, I don't know if they still do that. I mean, when I was,
Well, some towns they give you one or two
dumps.
free, and
Right.
then they charge you after. Yeah.
Well, I know Hartford used to give you 3.
Yeah.
But some people were taking advantage of that.
Taking advantage.
They know somebody that live in Hartford, got an address, go in there and dump their stuff. I mean, everybody's trying to cut corners. The reality is, I don't think you. I think you have to charge something, but I don't think $75 is the right amount. And I think the city residents should get at least a couple, 2 or 3 dumps a year
I agree.
free, something like that. You just have to come to a happy medium on the bulk waste issue.
Let me ask you this: do you believe in targeting the areas? So we know Hillside near.
Behind Buckley,
Behind there.
But it's hard to do that. I mean, unless you're gonna have a police officer sit out there.
No, how about cameras?
You gotta pay for the cameras.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard, but I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
we can fight that issue left and right, But I know one thing: I bet you can't go in another community and dump stuff and get away with it. They will fine you and they will tax you, and you'll be paying your behind also. So that's the issue with the bulk waste issue. That's one thing you talk about.
But since this, you might be able to address this. Since we mentioned cameras, how about cameras on officers?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I support that whole. Matter of fact, we put money in the state budget so that municipalities can actually get grants, free grants, to actually buy those supplies. So that's something I'm 100% support of. Cameras on the car, cameras on the person, even cameras on the gun, or cameras or actually they also got cameras on the what you call it when you zig them.
The stun guns.
Yeah. So all that equipment is available, and
Okay.
you can get it from the state of Connecticut at a very cheap cost. So I think every municipality, I think every police officer should have that. Everyone. There's
Okay.
no question.
Let me ask you this one, because you're saying a lot of it has to deal with the mayor and other politicians. What about the schooling in Harvard? The Chef O'Neill, all these magnet schools and other schools. What is it like?
A lot.
A lot of them. Okay.
So now you talk about stuff that we have state issues. So all the other stuff, a lot of other stuff you talk about, our local stuff, I can hit on some of them, but
Yeah.
so now you talk about so the reality is, in regards to Chef O'Neill, we know we had the lawsuit back in 1996. The reality is this: if you know your history, since the Brown versus Board of Education's decision in 1954, the state of Connecticut absolutely did nothing to integrate their schools. They did nothing. The court cases passed. Everybody looked at the South like the biggest issue was in the South. But if you read and do a little more research, northern schools are more segregated than Southern schools.
Boston, the Boston.
Not just Boston.
No,
Harvard.
I'm using.
Yeah, well, at least they
We always
made it
wanna
attempt.
throw it, yeah.
We always want to make the South look like they're the bad guys.
Yeah.
The South integrated after '54. They did. Not even going back to segregating in
Yeah.
schools, but they actually did. Connecticut never did anything. Boston made attempts in the late '60s, early '70s. You
Right.
see what happened when
Yeah.
that took place.
Yeah.
But there's a little provision that I learned in the Civil Rights Act of '65 that said that see what happened was with the Brown versus Boyd case. A lot of people don't know about this. They were going to get cut off from their federal funding if they didn't integrate school. But when they passed the provision, there was a little caveat put in there, a little wrap we call it in the draft, that didn't affect the northern schools. They still were going to be able to keep their funding, even if they didn't segregate. So
Right.
so what you saw, what happened is the northern schools stayed the way they were, and the southern schools actually integrated. A lot of people don't know, but there was a Harlem case of the Harlem. You already heard about the Little Rock Nine, but there was a Harlem Nine too, that their schools were segregated, and they fought in the early '70s to have their schools segregated. And it was worse than what happened in Boston, but we never hear about that story.
Right, we
So
don't.
saying,
Yeah.
so fast forward to where we are today in Connecticut. So we did nothing. So we had one thing that was voluntary. We had the Project Concern.
Right.
And that was just in the Hartford region. They had a small sample size in New Haven. Bridgeport probably had some, but we had the largest. And we had over 2,500 kids at one peak where kids were going, leaving Hartford and going to schools in the suburb. But it was a volunteer thing.
Right.
That didn't suffice. So then what have then was the Shep versus O'Neill case. What said we got to do something about this segregation in Connecticut. And what Connecticut did, instead of manning up and actually requiring, mandating that our school system become integrated, we created magnet schools
Right.
to deal with the issue. And we spent billions of dollars on magnet schools, hoping that kids will come together and go to school together.
Have you heard any of the suburban youth making comments on why they didn't gravitate to that strategy?
To the magnet school?
Yeah, because I heard.
Well,
they were saying they didn't have the programs that they want.
Well,
They can stay at. They can stay home
Right.
in their town.
Right. So people buy houses because of a number of things, and one of the biggest things people purchase their home is because of the school system. So
Right.
It's hard for me to believe that someone who bought a house in Avon is going to leave Avon and go to a school where it might be a magnet school or whatever. That normally doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. So we built these magnet schools with the premise of hopefully that people will choose it as an option. And a lot did. Don't get me wrong. There's advantages to it, especially in the pre-K and the kindergarten system. They leave their school district, but their school district don't offer pre-K and kindergarten, so they go to the magnet schools and get the free education, go back to their nutrition. I mean, people do what they do.
They do.
But the reality is, we never manned up and required it because people would have got, I think, very upset about mandating that their children go to school with other people if they didn't want to.
Correct.
And that's what, and we're at that point right now, and we're still there.
And we're not going to solve it in 20 minutes. So
you're not.
So
You're not.
So
So that's the reality.
moving on to the new policy, or the thought of a new policy for the police department, this quality of life BS that they're trying to promote. When I hear quality of life, I'm thinking of broken window theory,
Yeah.
and was it stop, ask, question, then frisk?
Yeah.
But everybody, they leave the question out.
Right, yeah.
It's just
Where you going? That's the
yeah,
question.
yeah. Stop and frisk. Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm hearing promotion of that idea. I guess we're taking that model from New York,
I hear the idea of community policing all the
and
time.
then also incorporating. Sorry to cut you. The state troopers as part of that as extra workers with the Hartford. Under particular things, I don't know if it's drug task force, but look it up. It's a certain percentage of the state troopers are coming to Hartford if it goes through. They just had their graduation.
Right.
On
right.
Thursday.
Well,
So yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it's if you listen to the police department, they're always understaffed. There's a certain number of police officers that they feel as though they need. But at the end of the day, you hear this concept of community policing. I don't know exactly what that means. I can't address it till they give me a definition of what it means to be a community police officer. I know that police officers need to know the community that they're serving. I wish we had more police officers that was culturally competent and not afraid to actually get to know the personnel. You notice I didn't say more people of color.
Yeah,
Because there's no difference, in my opinion.
I want to just jog your memory. There was two. I grew up on Norfolk Street. There was two Hartford police in the area. One lived on Kent Street, and one family lived on Baltimore Street. They kept coming through on a daily basis.
Right.
So you've seen two black officers on Norfolk Street area on a regular basis. All you gotta do is go outside. You'll see them.
the car.
And see that have an effect because like if you go out there and like I want to hustle or I want to rob somebody or
right.
and
Yeah,
you know
think
you want
about
to
it.
run into that officer
right.
then, and they know you by name.
Right.
You know,
like, Mike, get over here.
Yeah. So
And it has an
effect.
It has a huge effect. Again, police officers who are culturally competent and who are not afraid of the people they are serving. And you know, I used to say we need more black police, other Latino police. I don't say that anymore. I want culturally competent police officers who are not afraid. You know, because sometimes, you know, Ice Cube said black police, sometimes they're worse than white police. You know, I mean, let's be honest about it. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's something about the training, I believe, as opposed to the individual. So we need culturally competent individuals who are not afraid to work their community. And once they get to know their community, their job becomes easier because the community will help them. Because at the end of the day, people in our community are very conservative. We don't like violence. We don't like crime. We don't like drugs. We don't like that stuff. And sometimes if you look at the data, we're tougher on our own people when they come into the community, in the court system. If we're on a jury or something, we're tougher on our own because we're very conservative in our nature. And sometimes we're worse than others. But it's just because of the fact that we have a high expectation for ourselves. And when we see people do wrong, we want them to be punished. People don't think we do, but we call the police a lot of times. You know, we need them for the help. So it's good to have culturally competent police officers who are not afraid to become part of the community. That's what we need. And a benefit if they came up in the community, you know.
Okay. What do you think about I don't have a better term, speed bumps in the city of Hartford?
Yeah, I hear that. Now that's something I hear from a lot of people. Again, that's a local issue.
Come back, yeah.
But you know, I guess they say the reason why you can't have so many speed bumps is because you know ambulance have to get, if they have an emergency, they can't continue to stop everything. So every street is not going to get a speed bump.
Right.
I understand that. But they have these temporary speed bumps they can put out there for people, and I think that they can use that for a while. But the reality is people need to stop driving fast. And the reality is that happens in our community, unfortunately. And the reality is too many young people who don't have license are driving, and they're driving cars that don't belong to them.
Right.
You know, responsible people ain't driving 40, 60 miles down on the side street. They're not doing it. It just doesn't happen that way.
So the major question, I don't know if it should be directed at you, but the growing the tax base.
Taxes, yeah, that's important. Now that's the $100,000 question, because you made some good points here. You talked about how we have so many properties that's tax exempt. You know, you got the schools, you got the hospitals, you got churches,
Nonprofits.
the nonprofits, and then all the state property.
Yeah.
And the state is responsible for some of that because we're not giving back what we call oh God, I have a brain drain. Taxes in lieu, it's gonna come to me. I just have a brain drain. But there's tax money we're supposed to give to the municipalities to subsidize the state properties. Pilot money.
Right.
You know, that's what it's called. It's called pilot. I don't know why I have a brain drain. I hear it all the time. But we only give back a rate. We're supposed to give back a rate about 70% of what the value of the property is. We're at about 35%, but we can't afford to do it because we don't have money at stake. We're broke. Right. And I would love to get our pilot back up to like 70%, but I gotta realize it's not just Hartford. When you get it back to a 70% rate for all those state exempt properties, you're talking about Hartford, you're talking about New Haven, you're talking about Bridgeport, you're talking about properties in Waterbury. Now you're talking about a whole lot of money. In order for that to happen, you gotta get all the legislators to vote for it. And unfortunately, most of the legislators don't live in the urban cities. They live in the suburbs. So they're not. I love them. They really respect me. I respect them. But they're not gonna pass a bill to say that the state should give more money to Hartford, Bridgeport, and Windsor because they pay for product. It's just not gonna happen. We don't have the numbers to get that done.
Okay, let's talk about. I know a couple of companies moved into Hartford. I think was it Black and Decker and Stanley.
Stanley, and
they moved up
in a tech company.
in a tech. Yeah. Was that in West Hartford?
No.
Oh, this one in Hartford. Okay.
Hartford.
Okay, so my thing is, how do we, without giving the house away, to get because remember, Amazon was looking for an East Coast headquarters.
Right. Oh, but we're in competition with everybody in the world. But have you been out to that new Amazon facility out in Windsor?
Yeah.
It's stunning.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awful. It's excellent. I went in there, I toured it. Man, that place is awesome. And they hired 1,500 people. 1,500 people and paid them good wages too. It's amazing. I mean, it's just amazing, that facility. I mean, I know we didn't get a chance. We didn't win the Amazon deal. But
I don't even think they put us in the category. But I'm using that as an example, and I'm also using an old tactic, and I'm not agreeing with it, but I'm using it. Maybe we can copy another city that's doing a better way than the enterprise zone. Now in London,
it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long, but London, I know it's another country, so it's another mentality. They have what they call an empowerment zone. The empowerment zone is similar, but the only similar is that recruiting the local residents to come in that area to get trained and have employment, full-time employment and benefits. The difference with the empowerment zone in London, maybe somebody in Connecticut can go over there and see the model, is what they're doing is, unlike here in the United States where you have it, you're having that company because it's brand new and they stay in the area for 5 years or X amount of years, and once they get strong enough to be on their own, they leave Hartford and they go in the suburbs and set up camp because now they have a base of customer base.
Or the tax exempt status they have, after 5 years when they got to stop paying taxes, they leave.
Whereas the empowerment zone in London, what they do is they help the resident. So say Doug McCory don't have a car, that empowerment zone provide company cars and pick him up to go to work. So they have all kinds of incentives for the workers to stay there, and in terms of paying for school. Right. You know, and when I say paying, I don't mean fulls. You know, it's more like if you get a certain grade, you know, you get a reduction on tuition on that. It's not a full.
I got you.
Yeah, so
that's a great idea. Empowerment zone.
Yeah, in London, England. Yeah.
It's a great concept.
Yeah, so they looked at our enterprise zone, but they just made improvements.
They took it to another level.
Yeah, they took another level. Yeah.
Right. I like that idea. I think that's something we could do. I mean, what the state did, what the governor had, one of his programs with the First 5 programs, where they provide financial incentives for companies to come and move to Connecticut, and they got exempt for certain taxes or paying back the loans that they gave them if they created a certain number of jobs. The problem with that is most of the companies that came, they didn't come to urban communities. They came, they chose to go to other communities.
Yeah.
And my thing, I mean, that's cool and everything, but you know, then I think that incentive shouldn't be as high. It should be reduced. And if you came to a community that's underserved and that you know, that don't have the means withal, and you place that coming there, then you should have got a higher tax incentive to come there and a tax abatement than if you want to move to the suburb. So the concept of giving companies incentives to move to Connecticut, it makes sense, but
without giving the house
they
away.
Shouldn't determine where they want to be placed. And if they do determine where they want to be placed, then that incentive should be reduced. And if they work with the municipality that needs the most support, then that incentive could have and should have been.
Let me ask you this, because I know time is flying. Remember they had that program, I don't know if they still have it, where a homeowner can get help. And
down payment on their first house now?
No, not that one, but home improvement. I'm talking about home improvement. Oh, it's the and you know
that
they
part
get the part of, okay. I guess you know.
What program still exists?
Oh, it's still.
Yeah.
do you think it's actually working? Or,
Yeah, I brought my first house like that.
Okay.
I got help on my this was years ago, but you know I lived in Hartford. I wanted to stay in Hartford. There was a program called House Hartford. I got help on my down payment assistance, and also got help to improve the home. I got a grant for like $15,000-$20,000 to help remodel the home.
Okay,
As long as I stayed there for a number of years, like 7 years. Those are great programs like that. Those programs help increase that 20% home occupancy rate, the lowest in the state that we have in Connecticut. If you incentivize and offer people opportunities to get into a home, because think about it, people are paying what they paying for rent. It's the same thing with you paying a mortgage.
You can pay more.
But the biggest problem is they can't come up with that down payment. That first the down payment, that $4,000 or $5,000.
And all the fees
Yeah,
with the closing, yeah.
Right. So you help people do that. Now you got somebody that's got a home. It's different between, I don't care what nobody says, somebody own a house and somebody rent. It's a different mentality. You treat that home much different when you own it than if you're renting it, and you treat your community a little different. And because you don't want no riffraff around your home. So that changes the whole mindset of people who, when you're a homeowner, than if you're a renter.
So let me ask you this: do you, and this is old talk that's coming back strong about the tolls, but I'm not going to go to the Mass, New York, and Rhode Island. Those are the areas I would like to see tolls. But do you think a toll for the city of Hartford would?
So no, that's not
For workers.
No, so I'm gonna go back to that. That
But
makes sense.
but because I was about to say is now if you could have it on digital, we're saying that.
It's
You
too
know
many-
what I was.
I hear. Let me explain.
So,
for lack of
so you're
time.
coming.
So
You're coming into the city for work. You get told.
no, that it just doesn't make sense doing
Okay.
it that way.
All right.
But I'm
You get
trying
what
to
I'm
get to
saying.
where you're going.
Yeah.
What you're suggesting is a commuter tax. A commuter tax, and because I heard you mention something about 80% of people who work in Hartford don't live in Hartford.
Right.
You know, over 90% of people who teach in Hartford don't live in Hartford. 85% of police officers who work in Hartford don't live there. 80% of the firefighters who work in Hartford don't live out. So what happens is that all the tax dollars in Hartford goes out to the community, and we subsidize the neighborhoods. That's the reality. It's been like that. So what you're suggesting is something like a commuter tax for people who come into the city of Hartford, utilizes all the services, and then go back outside town and live and use their tax in their communities, where their mill rates are much lower, even though they can afford it. But so something like what New York City does. So New York City has a commuter tax. But New York City is large, and when you say New York City, it's all of New York City. You know, you got the boroughs. But if you live in this, if you work in New York City as a public, if you work in New York City, you get paid a tax if you don't live in New York City. So if you decide to live in Jersey, or if you decide to live in Connecticut,
Like Gail King.
yeah, they get paid a tax. They get a commuter tax. So what you're saying is something like that for the city of Hartford. I like it because I live in Hartford. But the question becomes, can I convince my colleagues who don't live in the city of Hartford to pass a law that said I'm going to tax them and their families for coming into the city of Hartford work? It's not going to happen. You see what I'm saying?
I get what I didn't ignore that, but that's where the buck stops. Yeah.
That's where the buck stops.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So again, I love the ideas. Some of the ideas we talk about are great, but I gotta convince my colleagues to do that, and I don't think they're gonna go for that. I don't think they're gonna go for it. But there's something we have to do differently because, I mean, if there was no Hartford, you have no suburbs. You know, think of how many people that live in Hartford, work in Hartford that live in the suburb. And I'm not talking about the ones that work for the insurance company, that's private. I'm just talking about the ones that work for the government of City of Hartford, police, fire, teachers, you know. That's a lot of people. If we can get 20% of them just to stay in the city, even if I get my number is 20%.
Yes, I think the insurance for Hartford is 30,000. 30,000 workers. And it dropped because
Right. It used to be bigger than that.
It used to be bigger than that. A lot of
Right.
insurance companies left.
So we gotta find ways. The reality is, if we can find ways to incentivize people to want to stay and buy a home in the city of Hartford, that's the best way of doing it.
Or spending money. How do we get people
Well, you
that's
gotta-
already here?
You gotta attract them. You gotta find something that they don't have, other places don't have, to attract them here.
Not MGM.
Look, I was always supportive of bringing the city in Hartford.
What is it? August 24th
That's the
is going to be
Springfield.
open. Yeah, it's going to
Springfield.
open.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, you know, look, I tried. Trust me. Again, it's not that I don't try. It's just that.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying what makes Springfield so much more holier to get than Hartford. It's just a location. No, but I'm just saying. But
it's called Western Mass because they got Eastern Mass.
Yeah,
they treat each other differently. Like
yeah.
it's like you know, everybody think Massachusetts is just Boston and suburbs. They get to forget about Western Mass, but you got Springfield there. So Springfield said, you know what, right? We're gonna build a casino here and try to take on the market.
But and we're included. It's 150-mile radius that encompass us. Yeah. So you're taking hardworking residents' money to go up there and empower Springfield's tax base.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and they got the Basketball Hall of Fame. They got the Six Flags and Agawam. Yeah, so they have a lot of things, and they're stepping. And I was bold enough to say they call Bradley Springfield Airport. Because
I guess we're Springfield. They call it Springfield.
Yeah. Because they're making the moves.
Yeah,
you know,
they making moves,
and we're here arguing.
Right.
You know. So somebody like yourself come up with an idea or say, let's head in this direction. You're gonna hit a wall. It's gonna resist.
I mean, every wall you don't hit. I mean, at the end of the day, like, you know, we had a situation where Hartford on a verge of being bankrupt, and we got enough of our colleagues to understand the issues in Hartford, like you said, you know, the tax base, all those things, and they came around supporting the fact that helped bail out the city of Hartford. So everything is not always gloomy. Everybody don't say forget Hartford, let them die. With large situations, I mean, at the end of the day, we service the whole region, the Hartford County.
So what about that? Mention that. Do you
I
believe
do.
it? No. I'm about to say regional government.
Regionalism. I believe in regionalism.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, Miami did it. Dade County.
Dade County. Yeah.
You know,
I believe in regionalism, but I give you another example. there was another town. I won't say the name. It wasn't Hartford. It wasn't Hartford, and they had two dog catchers, or what you call it, people that pick
animal control.
Yeah, one was a little more urban town, and one was a more suburban town, but they're right next to each other. Mm-hmm. The urban town one combined with the suburban town just to do animal control. You know, why have two? They were like, no, we want our own. Yeah. So they couldn't come together over a dog catcher.
Yeah, I give.
How they gonna come together over schools?
Yeah, it's parochial. You know, this 169 towns right. in a little state.
It doesn't make any sense.
I tell people from Hartford to New Haven is the distance in LA.
No, LA, you can go from Hartford to Bridgeport, and that's still LA.
Yeah. So you get an idea.
Yeah.
You know, and people is fighting over turf that should be all one.
Right.
You know.
Eventually we're gonna have to come together at some point to figure it out. I just don't know if we have the political will to do it, but I think at some point communities are going to have to come together and start sharing services.
Okay,
it makes sense. It's only going to make sense.
The last thing that we didn't mention, because I guess it's low priority, is entertainment.
Oh, people come here for Hartford entertainment. Now people will come to Hartford for entertainment. I mean, you got the cinema. What's the place over in the Meadows out? They keep changing the name. Comcast.
Yeah,
they got
they
that.
keep changing the name.
Yeah, I mean, people will come to Hartford for stuff like that.
But all right, let's look at the jazz thing is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I've been going
for years,
and when you mingle with the people at the jazz festival, you hear people from all different kind of things. I ain't talking about Rhode Island. I'm talking about people coming from North Carolina, coming from Texas for this thing.
Yeah,
and I think they need a little bit more.
More of that.
I would love Community Day in Keeney Park again. I thought that was a beautiful. I thought that was a beautiful idea.
Yeah.
A lot of people, you know, they have that little negative over. We don't want to mention the parade, but that's what I'm mentioning. You know, whether it's African American parade or the West Indian parade, or maybe even the Puerto Rican parade. But you know, we don't have a problem with the St. Patrick's Day parade, but the rest of them, it seems to always to be an issue, a trash police issue, shooting and all that kind of stuff. Also, I'm talking about we have the XL Center that I guess that $250 million didn't go through, or they still trying to rework it. Remember they did mention trying to open up in the North End a smaller arena.
I never heard that one.
Yeah,
I didn't hear that, but that's another issue. So the
So it's
Excel
over
Center.
a little bit past High Street, that area. Beside Dunkin' Donut Stadium, they want to build. Look it up. They want to build. They threw it out there, but nobody respond. To build a smaller basketball arena to replace the XL Center right there, and it didn't catch
Ain't
on.
nothing gonna be small.
No, I know it can't be. Yeah,
It can't be
because
small.
yeah.
No, I mean, the reality is they got to figure out what they want to do with the XL Center. A lot of people don't want. They like, why should we spend $250 million for that place? I mean, when the state is in budget crisis, it's a good argument to be made. But it's also you just can't let the place just sit there and not.
And it's taking up a lot. Yeah, it's taking up a lot of space.
Right.
And remember, somebody made a suggestion, not one of the walls now, which is going to cause a traffic issue, to expand it. And if you expand it and put slot machines in there again,
Yeah,
but
it's
this,
such a fight.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as it sounds.
no. But I'm just throwing out that they're trying to put up alternatives,
Right.
for you to buy in the
Right.
250. If you get somehow to get some retail in there, slot machines in there, and a concourse that is feasible.
Like it used to be back when we were young.
Yeah.
They had stores in there.
Yeah, it had stores in there. Yeah,
You know, they had
yeah,
restaurants
bookstores
in there.
and restaurants, Wendy's and all that stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff gone.
All that
They're
stuff.
fighting over that right now. Like they're fighting over that right now. They really got to repurpose it and
Well,
make it
they
more
need to.
community friendly.
Again, remember I mentioned Providence population
booming.
is booming,
Yeah.
and I mentioned what Springfield
Young
doing.
people-
All these towns around. Here's a town that nobody really talk about. Go down to Stanford. Take a look at what's going down.
You can see that off the highway.
Yeah.
You see what Stanford looks like.
Stanford got all kinds of stuff going on. As young people are flying from New York to live in Stanford, and stuff. And so you got all these urban centers that is doing what they got to do. And I know that Hartford is a capital. All capitals suffer, whether you're in Albany or whatever. They all suffer. But so I give them a break on this. On you can't do everything, but you can do better.
Some things,
yeah, you can do some things.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you look at the move downtown. Downtown costs like $1,400 for one bedroom.
Well, I think that was insane. I understand the strategy. You're trying to get college students and empty nesters to come back to the city because Hartford was told. I don't know if y'all talked about it in the hall. Hartford was told by major retailers that the only way that they're going to locate a department location, like a outlet in the city of Hartford, if they have more resident in the downtown area. That's where.
But even that idea is gone because
Of online.
Yeah,
Online is
the malls are shutting down.
Yeah,
When people ain't going, I don't even shop with.
Yeah.
I shop, but I do a lot of shopping online now than I do.
But what we should have did, again, this is coulda, shoulda, woulda. What we should have did what Minnesota did.
And put the mall downtown.
One huge mall. So we got too many. It's just we got malls everywhere. Every time you turn, there's a mall.
Yeah.
You make a wrong turn to go to somebody's house, you're at a mall.
Right.
So if this a little state, and we
we
had
had
a mall of USA in
Yeah.
Connecticut, one huge. That mall of USA has 500 stores. They're not going to close down because everybody
Something for everybody.
everybody's going to come to that location.
Think about it's funny how you just thought about the malls. Think about go back 20 years. We had West Farm, and then you had Buckland. Then you had Meriden had a mall. Then Enfield had a mall.
And Crystal
Crystal
Lake,
Mall in New London.
down there in New London and Holyoke and Springfield.
We had a lot of malls for a small state.
Yeah.
You're right.
So you had a lot of options. It's ridiculous.
Too many options.
Yeah, too many options.
All right, I gotta run, man.
All right, well.
It's nice having a chat with you, brother. Always.
And
Nice to see you people out there in Hartford.
And
Don't forget to come out and vote.
That's what I'm about to bring up. That
Tuesday, August 14th, I believe it is. Come out and vote. It's a primary. All votes count. All elections have consequences. You can see that now in Washington, D.C. Every election has a consequence. If you don't want what's happening in D.C. to happen in your neighborhood, better get out and vote. That's it.
Yep, that's it.
Any
And
show
thanks
off?
for. No, I'm gonna say a little.
All right, I'm
yeah.
going. Pico might.
All right.
All right.
Yeah,
I signed this too.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Now, my next show, what I'm gonna try to do is get the Hartford Police Department to come in and talk about some of the changes, alleged changes that they plan to implement. And I don't know if it's just for the summer or they're gonna try it out for the remaining of the year. So that's one things that I want to focus on. It's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, and well, here's another one that I also want to talk about, which I'm having a hard time of getting a representative to come in to talk about. This topic is about the homeless in the geographical area. It doesn't necessarily have to be only Hartford, but the surrounding towns. So I definitely want to bring that in. And another thing is, this state is is benefiting from the military contracts that Emperor 45 is pushing. You know, United States spend more money on military than any other country in the world. A matter of fact, you have 7 countries and you combine their military spending and you combine that, United States still spend more money than them combined. And 2 of those countries is Russia and China. So who are you afraid of when you're out spending the majority of the I don't want to call them enemies, but the people that you're fearful of, you're outspending them. Now I understand also that yes, you're trying to update the ships, the airplanes, and other things that needs to be maybe even the helmets need to be revised or updated for future situations. But I also realize that you're trying to protect trade routes. So if energy is needed to come to this country, the route that particular transporter is taking to bring that resource to the United States, that route has to be protected. So I understand part of the military spending is protecting shipments to get here to this country. The other spending is to update stuff that's aging and deteriorating. So those are 2 components. That last component is there's bases all over the world, and I looked it up. I spent a lot of times looking at and it depends on what you consider a base, because there's some bases that only have 1 or 2 people and they list it as a base. I will never list 1 or 2 personnel at a location as a military base. It might be a monitoring station, so you're just monitoring the area to report back what you see. What I consider is a base to have a group of soldiers that's ready to move to defend that certain area. So based on your definition, you have up to 600 bases, United States bases in the world. Now, I've heard numbers as high as 900 bases. I've seen numbers as low as 400, 300 bases. So I have no number. The most often number I've seen is 600. And I don't know how accurate any of these numbers are, but there's a lot. There's 75 conflicts that's going around the world. Right now is a serious conflict going on in the Congo, in Africa. Syria, they have a serious issue that's going on there. And Of course, there's other areas off the top of my head, but there's 75 conflicts. I'm using the word conflict, and in this country or empire, non-traditional empire or corporation, depending on how you want to call it, it's United States is more than a country. It's either a corporation or a non-traditional empire, because they have bases everywhere. They're in every conflict in the world, and they're have contacts in everybody else's election. So we have a situation where the decision makers have their hands in a lot of stuff. So that makes up that $700 billion budget, which I think is bloated, and they need to find a more creative way of spending taxpayers' money on reduce this budget. And I'm a big fan of having the Department of Peace. And I know some people are saying, well, what do you think the State Department is for? That's part of the State Department's job. But I would need, and they do have a think tank also that deal with peace. But you need more than the State Department and a think tank. You need a Department of Peace. And these individuals need to know what's really going on in the world, what's really happening, and not trying to push concepts like Christianity, capitalism, and democracy, and all these terms on other people. Because when you start traveling around the world, you will see the world is totally different than the United States. But again, a lot of people in the United States don't travel unless their job requires them to travel to those locations, or they're on a vacation. And those are tourist destinations like Hawaii, places like that. People want to go there. But I'm saying, do you have a reason to go to Switzerland? Do you have a reason to go to Australia? Do you have a reason to go to South Africa? I mean, so these are not commonly locations that the typical person have it on their list to go visit. Now, of course, you have people that have a lot of money, so on their list is just to go all over the world. You have some people that have been to 30, 40 countries already in their lifetime. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about you're doing travels to really know what's going on. You're not only relying on books or the news to tell you what's going on in Indonesia. You just say, I'm deciding that I'm going to learn to speak the language a little bit. I'm going to learn about the culture and the food, and if they have any great ideas in this particular country that I can share, bring it back to the United States and open up people's perspectives to new ideas. So those are things, and I know it's scary because, and I don't want to sound like President Bush. I don't want to sound like Emperor 45. They make it look like everybody hate the United States. I think that's a false statement. I think when you mess with somebody's country in terms of the elections, how you treat their workers by your corporations, how you look down on people, that is going to cause a hostile environment. So we got to look at that. Same thing as somebody come to your house and criticize how it looks and disrespect you in your own house. You're going to feel a certain way when you see that person. And that's what people that haven't traveled outside of the West